Have you ever wondered what really happens inside you when you masturbate? Not just in your body, but in your mind, your soul. This is one of the most private acts in human experience, and yet it holds some of the deepest psychological truths. Masturbation is still taboo, still cloaked in shame and guilt. But today, we're not here to judge. We're here to explore through the lens of Carl Jung. Like this video, if you're ready to face your shadows, and subscribe to the Animus for more soul-level content. Have you ever paused for a moment and truly asked yourself what happens inside me when I masturbate? Not just the obvious physical sensations or the surface-level emotions, but something deeper. What stirs within your psyche? What awakens in your soul for something so universal and natural? Masturbation remains one of the most misunderstood and slightly judged acts in modern society. Despite how open our world seems to be, where almost everything is discussed openly, masturbation is still surrounded by shame, secrecy, and caution. Why? Because it touches something primal in us. It isn't just about pleasure. It's about power, control, vulnerability, and the relationship we have with ourselves when no one else is watching, according to Carl Jung, one of the founding fathers of depth psychology. Every act carries symbolic meaning. He didn't see human behavior as isolated or random. For Jung, every repeated action was a message from the unconscious. Masturbation, in this light, becomes more than a release. It becomes a form of communication, a language through which our subconscious speaks. In Jungian psychology, there's a concept called compensation. When something is missing or repressed in our conscious lives, the unconscious compensates for it. Masturbation can sometimes be that compensation, a way for the psyche to balance something unfulfilled. Maybe it's loneliness, maybe it's unexpressed creativity, maybe it's a longing for intimacy or connection, something we didn't even realize we were missing. But what happens when this act becomes a habit? Or worse, an automatic reflex, disconnected from desire or emotion? That's when we must dig deeper. Jung warned that what we do not bring to consciousness appears in our life as fate. In simpler terms, if we don't understand why we do something, we'll be controlled by forces we can't see. So before you feel guilty or ashamed, ask yourself, what is this really about? Is it about pleasure, escape, comfort? Are you trying to fill a void? Or are you simply responding to a pattern your mind has created over time? Let's step back and redefine a common idea: libido. Most people think libido just means sexual desire. But in Jung's view, libido is life energy. It's the force that drives us toward growth, connection, creativity, and transformation. Sex is only one of its many expressions. When we have no meaningful way to direct our libido, no outlet for our energy or passion, it builds up inside us. It stagnates, and eventually, it demands release. Masturbation can be one such release. But if it becomes a cycle of buildup and discharge without awareness, we risk wasting a powerful internal force that could be used for something greater. You see, the real issue isn't masturbation itself. It's the unconsciousness around it. If you're acting out of boredom, stress, anxiety, or emotional pain without knowing why, then the act is no longer truly yours. It belongs to a deeper part of your mind, trying to signal something important. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This quote becomes incredibly relevant when we start examining behaviors like compulsive or numbing masturbation. If we don't explore the emotional and psychological patterns beneath them, we'll never feel in control of ourselves. Ask yourself, what emotions do I feel before I masturbate? Is it driven by genuine desire or something else? What am I trying to avoid in that moment? Sometimes it's sadness. Sometimes it's stress, or the need to feel something, anything, in a moment of emotional numbness. Recognizing this doesn't mean blaming yourself. It means understanding your inner landscape with more clarity. There's a powerful shift that happens when you move from guilt to awareness. When you stop seeing your desire as a weakness and start viewing it as a messenger, one that wants your attention, not your shame. In this video, we're not here to judge the act of masturbation. We're here to look underneath it, to decode what it means when it becomes a habit, a compulsion, or a source of connection, and to begin understanding how such a private moment can actually reveal the parts of us we've been hiding, even from ourselves. So if you've ever asked yourself, why do I keep doing this? Why do I feel empty afterward? Or is something wrong with me? Know this. There's nothing wrong with you, but something within you is asking to be heard. And that's what this journey is all about. In the next section, we'll explore how repressed emotions and hidden desires, the shadow, as Jung called it, might be driving your behavior without you even realizing it. But for now, just take this moment to reflect, not to judge, but to listen. Your body may have spoken, but now it's time for the soul to speak too. Let's go deeper. Jungian psychology, the shadow is the part of the unconscious mind that holds all the parts of ourselves we reject, repress, or ignore. These are the feelings, desires, and instincts we were taught to push down, things like anger, lust, shame, loneliness, even power. Masturbation, when viewed through the Jungian lens, often taps directly into the shadow. Why? Because it's a moment when we are completely alone with our unfiltered desires. There is no performance, no audience, no mushies, just you and the parts of yourself you usually silence. Think about it. What images do you conjure in your mind when you're alone? What fantasies play out? Are they wild, forbidden, sad? Do they reflect your conscious values, or do they seem to come from somewhere much darker? That's not wrong or sinful, it's human. Jung believed that healing doesn't come from avoiding the shadow, but by confronting it. Not to indulge it blindly, but to understand it, and eventually integrate it. In the case of masturbation, this means bringing awareness to what you're really feeding in those moments. For example, if you constantly fantasize about domination, submission, or being desired without question, you may be uncovering deep-seated wounds around power, control, or abandonment. This doesn't mean the fantasy is bad. It means it's symbolic. Let's say you grew up feeling invisible, emotionally neglected, or sexually repressed. Your shadow may express itself in masturbation through fantasies that give you what your conscious mind thinks it doesn't deserve: attention, pleasure, validation. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In this sense, masturbating isn't just an act of self-pleasure. It can be an initiation into your shadow. It can show you what your soul truly craves beneath the surface of everyday life. But here's the danger. If we don't recognize the shadow, we become its puppet. We may use masturbation as a way to cope with pain we don't want to face, reliving the same emotional patterns in silence, keeping ourselves stuck in cycles of guilt and numbness. Shadow work is about asking deeper questions. What am I really feeling when I do this? What am I running from? What would happen if I sat with my craving without acting on it? When you start becoming curious instead of reactive, you begin to break the unconscious loop. You step out of guilt and into understanding. There's also the question of energy. Jung and many Eastern philosophies believe that sexual energy is a sacred force. When suppressed or misused, it becomes destructive. But when channeled consciously, it transforms into creativity, intuition, drive, even spiritual awakening. This is where the practice of transmutation comes in. Instead of releasing your energy aimlessly, you direct it toward your goals, art, meditation, or connection. You learn to feel your desire without immediately needing to act on it. And in doing so, you rewire your relationship with your own inner power. Jung might say, your desire isn't the enemy. Your unconsciousness around it is. When masturbation is driven by awareness, not avoidance, it becomes a mirror. It reflects your hidden stories, your unmet needs, and your buried hunger for wholeness. So the next time you find yourself reaching for that moment of pleasure, pause. Feel what's underneath the urge. Is it loneliness, anger, boredom, despair? What if, just for a moment, you didn't shame it, but listened? In that listening, you begin the journey, not just toward sexual maturity, but toward soul integration. In the next section, we'll talk about how addiction to masturbation can be a cry for deeper emotional intimacy, and how to begin healing the unmet needs driving the compulsion. This isn't just about stopping a habit, it's about remembering who you are beneath it. Let's ask a powerful and uncomfortable question. What exactly are you looking for when you masturbate? Especially when it becomes repetitive, compulsive, or automatic. Many people assume the answer is simple: pleasure. But as Carl Jung understood, human behavior is rarely that shallow. He believed that compulsive behaviors, especially ones we don't fully understand, are often symptoms of deeper emotional wounds. In Jungian psychology, we are not just a bundle of instincts. We are layered beings made up of memories, trauma, forgotten needs, and inner archetypes. What this means is, when you engage in an act like masturbation repeatedly, without much thought, you might not be chasing pleasure. You might be escaping pain. Let's break that down. Have you ever found yourself masturbating when you're not even aroused? When you're sad, anxious, stressed, or just empty? That's not about desire. That's about soothing. It's self-soothing behavior, often rooted in childhood emotional wounds. Maybe you didn't feel seen, safe, loved, or accepted when you were young. Maybe affection was conditional. Maybe emotional connection was absent. In those early years, we all developed survival strategies. For some, it was people-pleasing. For others, isolation. And for many, especially when it came to emotions we couldn't express, those feelings got buried deep into the unconscious. But the body remembers, and the soul never stops seeking intimacy, not just sexual, but emotional and spiritual. So what happens when you don't know how to meet those deeper needs? The subconscious finds a substitute. Masturbation becomes an illusion of intimacy. It offers temporary warmth, release, a sense of being wanted, even if only by yourself. But when the orgasm fades, what's left behind often isn't peace. It's that quiet, familiar emptiness. The feeling of something still missing, that something is connection. Not just with others, but with yourself. Carl Jung understood that behaviors like this aren't solved by guilt, shame, or even discipline. They're healed by integration. That means seeing the wounded part of you that's trying to feel safe. It means honoring the unmet needs rather than punishing yourself for how you tried to cope. Let's take a real-world example. Imagine someone who was emotionally neglected as a child. No one ever taught them to talk about their feelings. Whenever they cried, they were told to be strong or get over it. Over time, they learned, my needs don't matter. I must handle everything alone. Fast forward into adulthood. They may struggle to open up, feel disconnected in relationships, and retreat into isolation when overwhelmed. And in those moments, masturbation becomes their way to feel something, anything that resembles comfort or closeness. The problem isn't the act. The problem is the emotional void it's trying to fill. This is where inner work begins. Start by noticing your triggers. When do you feel the urge to masturbate? Is it right after rejection? During loneliness? After feeling powerless? These are emotional cues, not just physical ones. Then ask deeper questions. What am I actually craving right now? Is it physical pleasure, or do I need to be touched emotionally? What conversation am I avoiding, especially with myself? The path of healing doesn't mean quitting masturbation, cold turkey, or demonizing it. It means becoming radically honest with yourself, knowing the difference between pleasure and its scarcity, and choosing to meet your own needs consciously rather than compulsively. Jung believed that healing happens through awareness. When you shine a light on your inner life, your unconscious patterns lose their grip. What once felt like a dark cycle becomes a signal, a message from your psyche. And you can finally ask, what is my soul asking from me right now? And maybe, just maybe, the next time you feel that urge rising, you'll pause, you'll breathe, and instead of numbing yourself, you'll listen. Because the true healing begins not in resisting your desire, but in understanding it. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, when I masturbate, who am I really connecting with? It may sound like a strange question after all. Isn't masturbation a solo act? Physically, us. But psychologically, there is something deeper going on. Carl Jung, the father of depth psychology, introduced two powerful concepts that help us understand this hidden layer: the Anima and the Animus. These are not just theories. They are living energies inside us, inner characters that shape our desires, fantasies, and emotional relationships. The Anima is the unconscious feminine side of a man. The Animus is the unconscious masculine side of a woman. They are created from all the experiences we've had with the opposite sex, especially in childhood. Your relationship with your mother or father, your first love, the way you were treated or neglected, these impressions form the blueprint of how you relate to others and to yourself. So, what does this have to do with masturbation? A lot. When you fantasize, when you feel aroused, when you long for someone, even in your mind, what you're actually connecting to is your own inner representation of the other. And that other often comes straight from your Anima or Animus. Let's take an example. Imagine a man who grew up with a distant or emotionally unavailable mother. He may have developed a longing for connection, tenderness, or validation. As an adult, he may fantasize about women who are overly affectionate, nurturing, or even submissive, not because it's about sex, but because he's trying to connect to that missing part of himself. That's his Anima calling out. Now imagine a woman who was raised by a controlling or emotionally cold father. She may unconsciously fantasize about dominant, powerful men, not because it's what she wants, but because she's trying to understand, reclaim, or resolve the energy of her Animus. That masculine figure isn't just a fantasy. It's a reflection of something buried deep within. So when you touch yourself, you're not just touching your body. You are, in a way, reaching for a relationship inside your soul. But here's the issue. If these inner images are distorted, wounded, or repressed, the sexual desire they produce becomes unbalanced. You may become attached to fantasies of control, pain, humiliation, or illusion. You may idealize a perfect lover that doesn't exist. And you may constantly feel unfulfilled no matter how often you masturbate, because what you're really seeking is integration, not just release. Jung believed that real psychological growth, what he called individuation, happens when we become aware of these inner archetypes and start to form a conscious relationship with them. Not by indulging them blindly, but by understanding their purpose. So how can you start doing that? Next time you masturbate, or even when the urge arises, is pause and ask, who am I imagining right now? What does this figure represent to me? Is this person tender, dominant, idealized, or unavailable? What am I seeking in this fantasy? Love, validation, power, comfort? Don't judge the answers. Just observe them. This practice may feel awkward at first, but it opens a door into one of the most intimate corners of your psyche. You begin to see that your sexual energy isn't just about lust. It's about your relationship with yourself. your wounds, your longings, and your inner balance. And here's the beautiful part. The more conscious you become of your anima or animus, the more whole you become. You stop projecting your wounds onto others. You stop chasing fantasies that only mask deeper needs. And slowly, you start to reclaim the parts of yourself you thought were missing. You become your own lover, not in a physical sense, only but in a deep, emotional and spiritual way. Jung said that, to truly love another, we must first meet and embrace the other within. That's the gift hidden behind your fantasies, behind your loneliness, even behind your desire. So, who are you really touching? Sometimes, it's not the body that longs for attention, but the soul. Now that we've explored the deeper psychic layers of masturbation, the shadow, the anima and animus, the unconscious drivers, there's one essential question we haven't answered yet. What can you do with all this energy? Carl Jung introduced the idea of sublimation, and it may be the most powerful tool for those who want to stop feeling trapped by their desires and start using them to create a more meaningful life. Let's be clear, sublimation is not repression. It's not about pretending desire doesn't exist. It's not about guilt, shame, or abstinence for the sake of control. Sublimation is transformation. It's the psychological process by which base instincts, like raw sexual energy, are redirected into higher, more creative, or even spiritual expressions. When you sublimate your libido, you don't deny it. You redirect it. You take that same fire and use it to paint, to write, to build something, to express your soul through a deeper outlet than physical pleasure. Think of it like this. Sexual energy is life energy. It wants to move, it wants to be felt, it wants to create. But if you keep discharging it in the same mechanical way, habitually, automatically, you're wasting your fire. Jung warned that if libido doesn't flow creatively, it stagnates. It can lead to obsession, depression, addiction, even spiritual numbness. So here's the opportunity. What if you saw your desire not as a problem to manage, but a message to understand? You feel an urge. What now? You can go down the usual road of escape and relief. Or you can pause, breathe, and ask, what does this energy want to become? This is where your deeper life begins. Instead of reaching for your phone or drifting into fantasy, try something radically different. Grab a notebook. Start writing. Not about sex, but about whatever is inside you. Let it out. Move your body. Dance, run, stretch. Let the energy rise through your spine instead of draining out. Meditate. Focus on your breath and visualize the energy rising, not exploding outward, but lifting upward, transforming you from within. Create something. Anything. A poem, a melody, a sketch. Turn your craving into creation. This is not New Age fluff. It's real. Many of history's greatest artists, mystics, inventors, and thinkers were fueled by the sublimated energy of unfulfilled longing. They didn't waste their libido. They channeled it into masterpieces because that's the gift of desire. It's proof that you are alive, that something in you is still burning, and that fire is sacred. Here's what Jung believed. When you channel your libido into something greater than yourself, you enter a different relationship with your soul. You stop seeking release and start seeking expression. You stop feeling empty after pleasure and begin to feel fulfilled by purpose. Does that mean you should never masturbate? No. This isn't about becoming a monk. It's about making a choice. Do you want to use your energy to numb yourself or awaken yourself? Even masturbation can be part of a sacred process if done with awareness. If you touch yourself with reverence, with presence, with meaning, not as an escape, but as an act of self-love, then you're no longer just releasing energy. You're exploring your soul. And in that moment, pleasure becomes a doorway to consciousness. But when that desire arises over and over again, without joy, without fulfillment, then it may be time to sublimate, to climb higher, because there is a version of you waiting on. The artist, the lover, the leader, the creator. And they are asking, will you give me your fire? So ask yourself, next time you feel that spark, will you burn it quickly or will you let it light the path to something greater? The choice is yours. That's the beauty of consciousness. And it all begins with a moment of awareness. You've probably felt it. That still, strange silence after the act. You've just masturbated. Your body relaxes, but something inside remains unsettled. A subtle sadness, a flicker of guilt, or a vague sense that something's missing. This is the emptiness after pleasure, and it's more important than most people realize. Carl Jung believed that these moments, though often uncomfortable, are windows into the soul. Not signs that something is wrong with you, but messages from the unconscious, from the parts of you that have been ignored, silenced, or misunderstood. You see, when the body gets what it wants, but the soul doesn't, a gap is created, and that gap is not a flaw. It's an invitation. But here's the mistake we often make. We feel that emptiness and immediately want to escape it, so we distract ourselves. We go on social media, eat something, or even masturbate again. We do anything but feel it. Yet Jung would tell us, don't run, stay with it. Sit in that discomfort, because that strange emptiness may actually be your soul whispering. You're not just seeking pleasure, you're seeking connection. That's the real root of many compulsive behaviors. Loneliness, not just physical isolation, but emotional disconnection from others, from the world, from yourself. So let's ask honestly, what were you really hoping to feel through that moment of release? Relief, comfort, escape, love. Many people turn to masturbation during moments of stress or anxiety, not because they truly crave sexual connection, but because they crave soothing. The touch, even if it's their own, becomes a substitute for the emotional presence they're missing. But the body can't solve what the soul is hungry for. And that's why afterward, when the sensation fades, the emptiness remains. It's not punishment. It's a signpost. It says, look deeper. It says, there is something in you that needs to be felt, not fixed. Jung wrote, only the paradox comes anywhere near to comprehending the fullness of life. The paradox here is that masturbation can bring both pleasure and sadness. And both are true. You can honor your body and still feel something unresolved within. You can enjoy the moment and still sense there's something more waiting to be discovered. So what can you do with this realization? Here are a few steps Jung might recommend, not as doctrine, but as invitations to deeper consciousness. 1. Practice presence. Next time, instead of rushing through the act or judging yourself afterward, pause. Be present. Feel what you're feeling. Without shame, without distraction. Can you simply be with the energy, the release, the stillness after? 2. Journal the moment after. Take a few minutes after the act to write. What are you feeling? What thoughts are rising? Ask yourself, what was I really needing just now? What am I still searching for? 3. Shift the narrative. Stop telling yourself this is something to be ashamed of. Instead, say, this is a message because it is. That moment of emptiness is your unconscious trying to guide you home. 4. Nourish the soul. 2. Pleasure is part of being human, but so is meaning. Balance the body's needs with activities that feed your spirit. Meditation, creative expression, nature, authentic relationships. These are things that create lasting connection. See the bigger pattern. If this cycle happens often, urge, release, emptiness, see it not as a weakness, but a pattern. And what do patterns tell us? That something deeper is at play. This is where individuation begins. The process of becoming whole by integrating every part of yourself, even the confused, aching, or impulsive parts. So don't fight them. Don't run. Instead, listen. That post-masturbation emptiness is not your enemy. It's your teacher. And when you begin to truly feel what's underneath it, you unlock something powerful. A chance to know yourself. A chance to hold your desires with compassion, not judgment. A chance to create intimacy not just with another, but with you. Jung didn't ask us to suppress desire. He asked us to look into it and see the soul hiding beneath. And sometimes, the deepest connection you'll ever find starts in that quados, awkward, painful little space, right after the pleasure fades. So far, we've looked at masturbation not just as a physical act, but as a mirror that reflects the deeper forces shaping our inner world, our longings, wounds, fears, and unconscious desires. But now comes the most important part: integration. Carl Jung's ultimate goal wasn't just awareness, it was wholeness. Not to reject the shadow, but to befriend it. Not to eliminate the instinct, but to understand its voice. Masturbation, like any other behavior, holds a psychological function. It reveals your relationship to your own body, to pleasure and to control. But when you approach it consciously, when you stop hiding from it or being ruled by it, it becomes something sacred. Yes, sacred. Not because the act itself is holy, but because your willingness to explore yourself deeply is. That's integration. It means no longer splitting yourself into good and bad. It means taking your sexual energy, your most primal, powerful force, and aligning it with your higher self. Think about it. When you repress your sexual urges, they don't disappear. They simply sink into the unconscious and find darker outlets. Addiction, shame, projection onto others. But when you bring them into the light, when you accept them, they become fuel for creation, not destruction. This is the secret behind transmutation, a concept explored by both Jung and mystics, like the yogis and alchemists. It's the process of turning raw, sexual energy into spiritual gold. So how do you begin integrating this energy? 1. Self-awareness without judgment. Start by observing your patterns. How often do you turn to masturbation out of boredom, stress, or loneliness? There's nothing wrong with that, but there is something to learn from it. Awareness creates space. Judgment shuts it down. So choose curiosity over shame. 2. Create conscious rituals. Rather than mindlessly falling into habit, try turning the act into a mindful experience. Set an intention before. Stay present. Observe how the energy moves in your body. And most importantly, feel the emotions that arise afterward. Don't escape them. Listen to them. 3. Reclaim your creative energy. Jung believed that sexual energy, when not released physically, could be sublimated, redirected into art, love, purpose. This isn't about suppression, it's about channeling. Can you use that energy to write, to dance, to build something meaningful? That's where the magic happens. 4. Integrate the shadow. Shadow work means welcoming the parts of you that society, religion, or upbringing told you were bad. Your lust, your fantasies, your confusion. You don't need to act on all of them, but you do need to own them, because what you reject controls you, and what you integrate empowers you. See pleasure as a messenger. Pleasure is not the enemy of the spiritual path. It is the language of the body, calling you back to aliveness. But pleasure without consciousness becomes addiction. With awareness, it becomes intuition. Ask, what does this pleasure want me to feel? What does this urge want me to remember? Often, the deeper answer is this: that you are still longing for connection, that you are still in the process of becoming whole. This is individuation, the lifelong journey of integrating every layer of the psyche from the primal to the divine. Masturbation becomes one of many mirrors through which you confront yourself. And if you're brave enough to face what lies underneath it, you don't just find control over your urges, you find freedom. Jung once said, "We don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That includes the darkness of our most intimate desires. because in that darkness is light waiting to be born. So here's the truth. You are not broken. Your urges are not sinful. Your longing is not wrong. It's all part of the map. A map that leads you deeper into your unconscious. A path that, if you follow it with courage and honesty, leads you back to your true self. Not the self society told you to be, but the self that is whole, integrated, free. If this journey spoke to something inside you, don't stop here. Begin listening to your desires with new ears. Begin seeing your shadow with new eyes. And most importantly, begin loving every part of yourself, without exception, because the work of individuation is not to become perfect, it's to become you.